In 1887, in the West, white people outnumbered Native Americans 40 to 1. Both groups battled to gain control of the same land. The U.S. Army units gained control of the land and the government forced Native Americans into reservations on the least valuable land. Starting in 1883, a group of white church members and government officials set up nearly 200 Native American schools around the United States. Children as young as 5 years old were sent off to schools to become assimilated and learn the way of the whites. One of these young Native American boys was Chuka, a member of the Hopi tribe. Chuka wrote about his experience of going to a Native American school. When Chuka was a boy, a school run by white missionaries was open where he lived. Chuka's sister was the first of his family to be taken to the school. When she returned, her hair had been cut, all of her clothes had been burned, and she had been given a new outfit and a new name, Nellie. When Chuka was 9, it was his turn. Chuka made the decision to go to school on his own terms. Chuka spoke of a woman at the school saying, "She cut my hair, measured me for a good-fitting suit, called me Max, and told me through an interpreter to leave my blanket and go out and play with the other boys." Chuka was considered bright by the teachers in the school. He was able to say the word nail ahead of the other boys. Chuka said, "I learned little at school that first year, except bright boy, smart boy, yes and no, nail and candy." When Chuka was 11, he switched to a boarding school. Before he parted with his parents, his father gave him some advice. "Don't run away," he said, "because we would not know where to find you, and the coyotes might eat you." And then they were gone. When Chuka did not answer to the name Max at the boarding school, they decided to change his name to Don. Chuka had been a big tough boy at home, but now he lost fights. His confidence faded. Sometimes in the evening, Chuka and his friend climbed a high hill and looked out over the land. On clear days he could see his mesa, which he called his home, and he longed with all of his heart to go back. Chuka's father soon came for him, and he returned home. Chuka said in his 2 years of white education, "I have learned many English words, and I can recite part of the 10 Commandments. I know how to sleep in a bed, pray to Jesus, comb my hair, eat with a knife and fork, and use a toilet." Chuka returned home, but did not stay for long. One morning, while Chuka was preparing to set off for school, armed forces surrounded his village and captured him to take him back to school by force. But Chuka was no longer afraid. Throughout Chuka's life, he struggled to live in 2 worlds. He took the name Don for whites, but kept his Native American name and belief in the Hopi customs. He became fluent enough in English that he was able to co-write his autobiography called Sun Chief, the Autobiography of a Hopi Indian. The 1880s in Russia was a very oppressive time, especially for the Jewish community under the rule of Tsar Alexander III. Jewish people were attacked, expelled from their towns, and daily living became increasingly intolerable. This led to a mass exodus of nearly 2 million Russian Jews between the years 1880 and 1914. One of these immigrants was Rose Golub, born in a tiny Russian village, which is now part of Belarus, on April 4, 1880. Rose's town was much like the rest of the country, where Jewish people were becoming increasingly oppressed. In 1890, Rose's father, Abram, fled Russia and migrated to New York City in hopes of creating a better life for his family. The Golub family didn't hear from Abram for nearly 2 years while he tried to make a living in America. Even then, they only received a package containing 2 steamship tickets to America and a letter. In the letter, Abram explained that the tickets were for Rose, who was only 12 at the time, and her Aunt Masha. Abram wanted Rose to come to America before her mother, 2 brothers, and 2 sisters, because he had already taught Rose to sew. Abram knew that Rose's sewing skills could help them raise enough money to buy tickets for the others. Upon arriving in America, Abram already had a potential job for Rose in the sweatshop sewing. However, that didn't mean everything went well. Rose had to prove her ability to sew before she could actually get the job. In an excerpt from her writing, she says, "If I don't sew this coat quickly and well, he will send me away at once." I picked up the coat, threaded my needle, and began hastily, repeating the lesson my father impressed upon me. Be careful not to twist the lining. Take small, false stitches. Even though she passed the test, the man running the shop was still hard on her because of her young age. He hired her on a weekly basis so he wouldn't have to pay her as much as the older women. She made $3 a week and worked from very early in the morning, before the sun rose, until late into the evening, far after dark. The only thing that kept Rose going was the hope of soon seeing her family. Rose and her father kept working to raise enough money to bring the rest of their family to America and away from the oppression of the Russian government. It was a year before they were finally all reunited. Later Rose became a union leader and organizer. However, very little is known about her late life. She married John Cohen and had a daughter, Evelyn. Upon her daughter's birth, Rose quit working in sweatshops and went back to school to pursue her lifelong passion of writing. She wrote 5 short articles and a book about her life called Out of the Shadow: A Russian Jewish Girlhood on the Lower East Side. Rose died when she was just 45 years old in 1925, but little is known about her death.